was 1 year ago today that we set up that wooden pole in the garden known as a toba, which is a kind of stupa. A stupa is one of the most ancient shrines that humans created in South Asia. Very, very, very long time ago. They find evidence of piling up stones in this shape. And probably all over the world that happened in one way or another. And the stupas of South Asia, as Buddhism traveled through East Asia, they took on different forms. And one of the forms is this called kakutoba, is the word in Japanese. It means a square toba, square stupa. And we set up that toba, or that stupa, to celebrate the ascending of the mountain seat, the first installation of Abbot at Buddha Eye Temple. And that anniversary will be tomorrow. And I have a colonoscopy. I was totally, when I set the date, they gave me the date and the doctor I chose, because I know it's complicated. Anyway, and then they're like, this date, I didn't even think about it. And then like a few weeks ago, I was like, oh, that's hilarious. ascending the heights and plummeting the depths. So 20 years since we moved here to 2190 Garfield Street at the time of the mountain seat. Really a wonderful 2 decades. Many of you were here for much of that. Many of you were here for part of that. But one of the things that's so important for us to remember, that a mountain is established. A mountain is one way we refer to a temple. A mountain is established with the first ascent of the first abbot. In a way, there isn't truly a mountain until there's an abbot. The mountain is established along with the first ascent. It's mutual. But we could also say that the only reason there's a mountain is because of 20 years of activity, which is not the activity of the abbot, is the activity of the whole world, but more specifically the activity of a sangha, the activity of a community which dedicates themselves to the Buddhist teachings and practice, not just at the temple, but in their life. Just like a mountain, if you drive north, and as you get close to Portland, Mount Hood is quite regal in this way, right? It ascends from the valley in this beautiful form. But all of that activity that's there in the valley is what makes the mountain be able to appear serene and stable. So a mountain isn't just a mountain. A mountain isn't a mountain. That's why we call it a mountain. If we use the terminology of the Prajnaparamita, it would go something like that. But we can feel that in a really direct and tangible way when it comes to the establishment of a temple, of a shrine, of a stupa, of a mountain. So, it's an amazing thing. And 1 year on from that, I'm still a bit dumbfounded. The Godo Roshi, which is one of the important teachers at a monastery, the monastery I trained, he was such a windbag. I used to get so frustrated with him because he would just talk on and on and on, like anyone you know. But during Zazen, he would do this. We'd be sitting Zazen, and he'd just talk forever about stuff I didn't care about. But I loved him, and he said he used to tease us. he would say, well, okay, when you leave the monastery and you're going back to your temples, don't get enlightened too quickly. Don't get enlightened too quickly, he would tease us. He says, if you get enlightened too quickly, you won't work hard enough. You won't do everything you need to do to make your temple, work. And I always remember that. It was wonderful. He was serious and he was teasing us, as if we would become enlightened. And as I was thinking about this, reflecting on something that was very surprising and beautiful in my experience of becoming the first abbot had to do with the hard work that it took to get to that point, and how important that hard work was and how diluted it was. And I mean diluted in an affectionate way. That there is a kind of delusion in building something. There's a kind of delusion in erecting a stupa. And there's probably a lot of flavors to that delusion, but one of them is when you're inside that building and you're trying to make something work and you're expanding how it is that you're able to do things, it's easy to obscure the limitations of what it is that you're doing. Let me try to describe that a couple ways to see if it can make it make sense. That when you're building it, you're just in it. You're like a flower growing, and you don't have any room to think about, like, I'm just a flower. You're just building out into the world, and you're feeling that expansiveness that pulls you out into the bloom of your flowerness. You think about how it is, maybe when you're a teenager, how energetic and rambunctious and troubled you are. But you're just all the energy that you can muster to do life, and you're coming into your own. And I really feel that way about, the first 20 years of Buddha-ai Temple. I wouldn't trade that for anything. But there's a way in which you can't see that you're also just a limited thing. It's just a little corner of land here between Garfield and 22nd Street. Beautiful buildings, beautiful people, beautiful practice, just like a flower. And there's a pretty clear line you could draw around it and say, yep, that's where it is. Those are the people who are involved. These are the things that happen. There's a whole bunch of things that don't happen. There's a whole bunch of things that are really awesome about the world that don't happen at Buddha-ai Temple. In fact, most of the things that are awesome about the world don't happen at Buddha-ai Temple. How liberating, right? But when you're growing, you kind of thinking always like, oh, that's great, this is great. How could I do it? You're building out, you're building out, you're building out, you're building out. Now, not to say that we won't keep doing that, we will. And I'm happy, but there's something happens when you come to a kind of completion, when the mountain is established, in which you say, oh, it's a flower. And the beautiful thing about flowers are, if you pay attention to them, any one flower is every flower. Right? That's why they're so beautiful. Like when you come across have you ever been to the tulip fields up north? That's really fun if you've never done that. Like north of Salem, they grow all these tulips, and mostly they're selling the bulbs, I think. And then there's also iris place you can go. But I like the tulips. And then it's crazy. You just like walk out into these fields. It's like of color, just as far as you can see. It's really fun. It reminds me of the Wizard of Oz, but you don't get high from this. Poppies, 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 poppies. When they go in the poppy fields, it's kind of like that, but you're just high on the color. Yeah. So I guess one of the really palpable feelings for me about this establishment of the mountain and having the responsibility of being the first abbot is the freedom of limitation. There's a real freedom in doing the work that we are here to do, and not to call it other kind of work, but simply to invest in it. Invest in something that's important and central, and trust the world that it will also invest in things that are important. And that's a kind of ease that I didn't have before the Mountain Sea. Shobo Butsugenji. True Dharma Buddha Eye Temple. A flower. Now, from a conventional standpoint, or we could say kind of outer standpoint, what is the significance of an abbot? Establishing the office of the abbot, as we explained last year. In Japan, you're establishing the room of the abbot, or the hall, the Hojo, which I'll talk a little bit about. But establishing that office of the abbot, again, from an outer perspective, or the outer significance, is there's a conduit for the community's spiritual life. Not just in the person of the abbot, but in the office of the abbot. That position, that role. There's someone who takes central responsibility, establishes kind of continuity of approach, and also establishes a kind of lineage. That when there's somebody who takes that kind of responsibility, then there's a way for people through time to take that kind of responsibility. If no one ever clearly and visibly takes that responsibility, it's very difficult to pass it on. So those are important reasons. There's other ways you could organize it. There's lots of ways you could organize it. But in this tradition, that has been the way that it's been organized for a very long time. By very long time, I mean like a millennia and a half, something like that. Sometimes you'll hear this term, it's a very uncomfortable term. Master. Zen master. One time it was like right when I was back from Japan. I think it was like 28 or 29, and I got invited to speak at something, and they didn't know what to, like they were just making honorifics for people, and so the program said, Ejo, master of Japanese Zen. And my wife saw it, and so now she just teases me all the time. She just calls me the master of Japanese Zen. But it's an interesting word. And we shy from it. You know, we don't, that term master is tricky. And it also has some connotations that are not, that are also difficult, that maybe we don't want to use that word because it's been used in some really inappropriate ways or problematic ways. We have terms like Roshi. People maybe know that term from Zen schools, which just simply means old teacher, right? But it's honorific. So in Western Zen, oftentimes, like in some lineages, once you've been teaching independently for 20 years, then you will have the title Roshi. That's not quite the way it works in Japan, but you'll hear that term sometime. Interesting, you know, in Islam, the term sheikh, that means old one too. So oftentimes, the age is kind of the reference point there. But I think we're very confused about the significance of these kinds of terms. In our egalitarian United States of American mindset, we don't like to think too much about that level of authority or investing so much in a particular person. And there's good reason for that. It's amazingly risky. Super risky. But I would say, what have you ever done that was really worth it, that wasn't risky? Not to say, again, it's the only way, but it is a way, and it's a way that has been cared for a long time. You know, why is it risky? Because there are unscrupulous beings. And there are beings that are just kind of blah. So what happens when the abbot is just blah? Or what happens when the abbot is unscrupulous? create a power structure. We create a hierarchical system. We invest in something, and then that person abuses their authority, or is just kind of negligent. We need very strong cultures to care for that. We need to build a strong culture in which being invested with that kind of spiritual authority doesn't give a person license to act unscrupulously or negligently. And so we strive to build such a culture. And I've said many, many times, and I will say again, if you ever think that the abbot, or me, or anyone in a sangha is doing something unethical, it's not only that you have the right to say something, you have the obligation. You can bring that to the board. You can bring it to senior students. You can bring it to the abbot. That's important. That's important. We have I won't go on about this too long, but we have an ethics statement. We have a way to file a grievance. We have all of those things. And we used to have them up on the board, and I think they got cleared out during COVID. We would get them back up there. So that's important. That's one of the things that we can do. But it's trickier than that. Because when it's just an individual that we can name as unscrupulous or negligent, it's not easy to deal with, but we can create systems. But guess what? Everyone is unscrupulous and negligent. Those beings are not out there. Those beings are right here. And we can't just boot out the weaknesses. We can't just cleave off the weaknesses from the strengths. And as it turns out, this is one of the things that makes the investment so powerful, that we don't invest just in perfection. We invest in each other. That's risky, and is also a great cause for liberation. Simply investing in the ideal, while there's a time and a place for that, it has a way of petering out. When we invest in each other and we strive to see the Buddhahood in each other, then there's some grist in the mill, and some work can actually get done. In the abstract, work doesn't get done. So, traditionally, the abbot of a temple is known as the Hojo-san, Mr. 10 by 10. And this comes from a sutra called the Vimalakirti Sutra, which is one of the most beloved sutras in East Asia, China and Japan in particular. I'm not sure about Korea. Not as much in other Buddhist traditions, but it's a sutra which recalls this. It's really funny and amazingly insightful and visionary, and it's about Vimalakirti, who's a very wealthy layperson and like a supreme bodhisattva. And the basic flow of the sutra is that Vimalakirti has become ill. And so the Buddha, knowing that Vimalakirti becomes ill, keeps telling his students to go and visit Vimalakirti. And so the first part of the sutra, he's like, oh, Shariputra, go see Vimalakirti. And it's like, oh, no, I ran into Vimalakirti this one time, and he totally schooled me. And then they recount the way that Vimalakirti super schooled them in the way that they were stuck on something. They had a certain idea about what it meant to be the spiritual person that they thought they were, and Vimalakirti just, undercut it completely. And so they're all afraid to go see Vimalakirti because his tongue is so sharp and he's so wise and he sees into things and he doesn't spare anybody. And so he goes through all of his students and all these great bodhisattvas and stuff. No one will go, no one will go, no one will go. And then finally, Manjushri, who's the bodhisattva of wisdom, decides to go and see Vimalakirti. And this is what he says. World honored one, this is Manjushri speaking. That eminent man is very difficult to confront. He is profoundly enlightened in the true nature of reality and skilled at preaching the essentials of the law. His eloquence never falters. His wisdom is free of impediments. He understands all the rules of bodhisattva conduct, and nothing in the secret storehouse of the Buddhas is beyond his grasp. He has overcome the host of devils and disports himself with transcendental powers. In wisdom and expedient means, he has mastered all there is to know. Nevertheless, in obedience to the Buddha's august command, I will go visit him and inquire about his illness. So this is Manjushri saying, okay, no one will go, I will go. And then this great host of bodhisattvas and students of the Buddha and heavenly beings, they're like, Manjushri and Vimalakirti are going to have a discussion. We all want to be there for that, right? Because Manjushri is the bodhisattva of wisdom, and Vimalakirti is this being of great wisdom. And so they think, oh, this is going to be really the fight of the century. And so they all come along with Manjushri to Vimalakirti's house. And so they get to Vimalakirti's house, and Manjushri's there to ask Vimalakirti about his sickness. And so he arrives, and they have a long discussion about his illness, which is very interesting. Vimalakirti, kind of just to paraphrase, he says, well, I'm sick because the world's sick. What would you expect? There'd be a lot more, there's many pages of that basic thing. And then Shariputra, who is kind of becomes the person who's always getting kicked in these Mahayana sutras. Poor Shariputra. I mean, Shariputra is so important. But he's the one who calls out. This is why we should really learn to love and respect Shariputra, because he calls the teachings out of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Right? He's always asking the question, the innocent question. He doesn't get it. And he asks these questions, and it pulls the wisdom out of these beings. And so at that time, Shariputra, observing that there were no seats in Vimalakirti's room, thought to himself, all these bodhisattvas and major disciples, where are they going to sit? Good cue. The rich man, Vimalakirti, knowing what was in his mind, said to Shariputra, did you come here for the sake of the law, or are you just looking for a place to sit? And of course, Shariputra says, I came here for the law, not for a place to sit. And Vimalakirti gives him a hard time a little bit more. But this is the kind of wit of Vimalakirti, right? And then he does this miraculous thing. Vimalakirti then exercised his transcendental powers, and at once that Buddha dispatched 32,000 lion seats, tall, broad, adorned, and pure, and had them brought into Vimalakirti's room, where the Bodhisattvas, major disciples, Indras, Brahmas, 4 heavenly kings, and others saw something they had never seen before. For the room was broad and spacious, enough to hold all these 32,000 lion seats, without the slightest crowding or hindrance. The city of Vaishali, that's where his home is, and Jambu Vipa, and the other of the 4 continents too, seemed in no way cramped or inconvenienced, but all appeared just as usual. So he calls forth these 32,000 lion thrones, which are massive. They're like, each one is like a whole world, the size of a whole world. And they all fit there in Vimalakirti's room for all of these visitors to sit. And there's one for each person, including Shariputra. And as it continues to paraphrase, Shariputra says, well, I can't sit on that seat. And Vimalakirti says, bow to the Buddha. When you make prostrations to the Buddha, then it will be easy for you to take the seat. And he and the others make prostrations to the luminous Buddha, and then they're able to take their seats very easily on the throne. These lion thrones, which fit in this room. It's beautiful. What does it take for us to learn to sit on such a throne? Vimalakirti invites everyone in the assembly to sit on the throne of a Buddha. Now, there there was a group of Chinese monks who were sent to visit and look for Vimalakirti's ruins of his house. I think this was like in the 600s or something. So they traveled to northern India, and what they found, what was known to be Vimalakirti's house, they went to it, and it was basically one by one unit of measurement that they used at that time, and that measurement was about 10 feet. So that room that Manjushri came to, the Vimalakirti had emptied out of everything except for his bed in Vimalakirti, and where all those thrones had peered, they saw was just 10 by 10. And so from that time, the abbot's room of a temple was known as the 10 by 10. And the quality, or maybe we should say the no quality, of that 10 by 10 has to be one in which 32,000 thrones can appear for every being to find their place on the throne, the lion's throne. Not hindered by idea of space, of size, of time, of any of those things. Now, I was saying there is this conventional or outer significance of abbotship. This story leads us to the intimate significance, to what in the Vimalakirti Sutra is referred to as the emancipation beyond comprehension. That's how he explains. They say, how'd you do that? He says, emancipation beyond comprehension. And he explains what this emancipation is. That all of the great mountains of the world, the great mountain, Mount Sumeru, he says, could be put inside a mustard seed. And all the gods that live on Mount Sumeru and all the beings like us that cling to the sides of this great mountain, they wouldn't even know that they had entered a mustard seed. That is the quality of this emancipation beyond comprehension. A few weeks ago, I have this habit of writing something on a piece of paper and putting it up in front of the gate. If you ever pay attention, when you come in on the right-hand side, there'll be something scrawled. And a few weeks ago, I wrote, "The sacred mountain is not outside. I made a mountain." I don't know why I did that. Just what I felt like doing. But as I was preparing for this talk, I was remembering, oh yeah, the sacred mountain is not outside. It's in a mustard seed. It's right here in a being, in every being. That's why the lion's seat is yours. So from a more intimate stance, each of us must occupy the Hojo. Each of us must occupy the Hojo. We are the abbot of our own temple. The chamber of our own heart is this 10 by 10 room that Vimalakirti had mastered so perfectly. Most of us haven't mastered it in that way. We don't know the freedom of the chamber of our own heart. We don't know that it has the capacity for countless thrones. And so we don't take our place. In one way, Zen practice is just caring for that chamber. That's all it is. It's a chamber through which all things emerge and through which all things return. It doesn't have any doors. There's no way in. There's no way out. It's completely intimate. To actualize that jewel throughout the Dharmadhatu, or throughout the countless worlds, is like a fractal. People know this term fractal. Mandelbrot, is that how you say? Mandelbrot set is the most famous one, and it looks kind of like it's curly like this, kind of. And then if you look into it, it's the same shape over. The farther you look into it, the more you see the same shape. And if you go out, you see that that shape was just part of the shape that was inside the shape that you were looking at, right? So that's how we practice. the temple is one shape. But the reason that it's that shape, the reason there's an abbot, the reason there's a hojo, the reason there's an assembly is because you are a temple. You are the abbot. You are the master of your hojo. And it has to be expressed on this level for it to be expressed on this level, for it to be expressed on this level, for it to be expressed on this level, for it to be expressed on this level. They're all interpenetrating. And this is something that is so precious. It's not about someone getting up on the high horse, getting up on the throne and saying, you're below, I am above. A reason a person takes the place on the mountain is to remind you that you are the master of your own being. If we never meet a master, it's hard for us to know that we are the master. Sometimes we don't need that. Very rarely, I would say. There are people, there are beings who do not. My experience has been, well, I've never met such a person, actually. I have heard it said by people I trust deeply that is possible. So that's the authority with which I would say that there are such people. So different traditions give us access to this in different ways. In some traditions, it is the Zen master, which doesn't really interact with us very much. And they give us some practice to do, or they give us some teaching story. And we, other than that, we don't have any connection with them. And you come back again and again and again to their room. And if you're in a Rinzai temple, for example, practicing at a sesshin or something, you will go to the master's room like at least twice a day. And mostly your interaction will be somewhere between 1 and 15 seconds. Could be a little bit longer. And you go back again and again and again and again and again, and they're checking your mind. So it's one way. If you were a Sufi, you'll meet with your sheikh, and they will guide you in your visions. If you're a Catholic, you receive the host from a father. Here, maybe mostly what you will get is just a jabbering, middle-aged, not old-aged yet, windbag, well taught by his Godo Roshi at the monastery. Not in too big of a hurry to get enlightened. So I have a request. And this is a request that I've thought about for some time. And it's not an easy request to make. Because it will be uncomfortable. It will feel awkward. But my request is that the assembly stop calling me by my name and start calling me Abbot. Hojo-san, or Abbot. It doesn't mean you could never use my name. But I've thought about this for a long time and gone back and forth. And the only barrier I can see to it really is the awkwardness. It feels awkward to me. It feels uncomfortable. And really not because I don't want that title. Or that doesn't feel strange to me to have such a title. But we already use so much Japanese things, and it just, makes me feel like maybe it pulls it in a direction that will turn some people off. So that's why I feel uncomfortable about it. But I've come to believe that it's important, and that it's not so strange. Actually, in English, we have a lot of times where we do that. You're on a boat, you say captain. If you're on a plane, you say pilot. We say governor, we say mayor. We say father for a priest, we say rabbi, we say sheikh. We say sensei if you're in a martial arts studio that's Japanese derived. In your home, you probably, it always freaked me out when people called their parents by their first names. Did you have friends that do that? They're like, hey, Tom. I was like, I never call my dad Tom. Only time I've ever used his name, I think, is when I introduce him to someone else. It's mom and dad. And so I feel like it's not so strange. Abbot, Hojo-san, just to say Hojo is a little weird. Hojo-san is what people would say in Japan. And in fact, in temples, there are many, many other titles like that we don't have right now. I mentioned the Godo before. The Hojo is the person of the room. That's the Hojo that I've been talking about. The Godo is the person of the back hall. The Todo is the person of the eastern hall. The Seido is the person of the western hall. And those all had positions within the temple. My teacher, who I only ever called Hojo-san, the only time I've ever used his name, is, again, introduced, who is your teacher? And if I say Hojo-san, they're like, there's lots of Hojo-sans. Would be like just saying sheikh or sensei. Like, who's your teacher? Sensei. It wouldn't make any sense. So, I say Keira Roshi, Keira Joshin Roshi. That's who I would, how I would say who he is. But I only ever called him Hojo-san. When my Dharma brother became the next abbot, I had to call him Todo-san. I could no longer call him Hojo-san because he no longer was the Hojo-san. He was the Todo-san. He was the person of the Eastern Hall, which for him was, he spent a long time as the Hojo, 60 years, 60-some years. He became abbot when he was 26, I think. And I think he gave it up when he was in his late 80s. So not usually so long for people. So anyway, that's my request, and just play with it. Don't worry how it goes one way or the other. You say Ejo sometimes, that's not a big deal. But just try to curve in that direction, and we'll figure that out together. And the number one reason that really for me clinched it was recognizing that I will not be the abbot forever. Hopefully for a little while, longer than a year. So that's my sincere hope, but it won't be. There's a limit. And to express that limit, we need some clarity. And there will come a time when someone else cares for that room at this temple. I will still have the responsibility of caring for that room of my own heart. And we care for that room for each other. But how is expressed at the temple will need to be someone else. So again, not in a hurry for that, but realizing that that makes a title important. Does anyone have any questions? I need Hojo.
Hi. So when you were sharing about the story, and you said that when they came in and it opened up 32,000, what was it?
Mm-hmm.
But then you said no doors, no windows, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Why would it be 32,000 numbered?
Mm-hmm.
Does it mean there was only 32,000? But if it's everybody, like he comes in, the seat is opened. Is there a reason for the 32,000 not being one?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So there's always a tension between inclusion of like everyone and these these words that are like absolute words. Like when you say everyone, in a way, each individual person kind of disappears. Because now each individual person isn't important, it's just the everyoneness is important. So oftentimes in Buddhist sutras, that is dealt with very carefully. And the way it's dealt with is by not using ultimate words that flatten everything into a kind of ultimate meaning, but using these kind of code words like 32,000. So 32 is the number of marks of a Buddha, the characteristics of a Buddha. There's said to be 32 characteristics of a Buddha. So in a way, when there's 32,000, it means that basically all of those thrones were just the body of the Buddha in this immense, immense, immense body of the Buddha. But again, it's not just an ultimate statement so that the body of the Buddha becomes important and all the thrones become kind of like part of the body of Buddha. Every throne is the throne of a Buddha. And that's the only way that, again, the fractal, on the big scale of the body's Buddha, that's the only way that body can emerge, is if every throne has a Buddha upon it. It can't be like they're not Buddhas, but all the not Buddhas put together become the Buddha. Every little thing has to be the Buddha too. Every mustard seed has to be the Buddha. The kingdom of heaven's in a mustard seed, right? We know that from one of our great teachers. Yeah. So that's why we don't use terms like everyone or everything. I mean, sometimes you'll hear it. It gets used, but usually numbers get used. And then it also, it comes back to the first thing I was saying about recognizing limitation is the place where there's freedom. If you say everything, then you're just always expanding out like this. But when you realize, no, there's 32,000, and 32,000 is enough for everyone to have a seat.